Today is June 5th, 2009. I am Andrea Mott. It is a pleasure to conduct this interview for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project in Napoleon, North Dakota. Can you please state your full name, including maiden name?
I am Carolyn, Carol, Marquart, Mock. I live in Napoleon, but I do have a farm in Braddock, which we always visit at least once a week or twice, possibly, whenever the children come home.
Can you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born in Napoleon, April 29th, 1927, on a farm home just north of Napoleon, about 2.5 miles. The home is still there. It has changed a bit, but we still go and visit once in a while, too.
Have you ever heard an interesting story about your birth? Did anything unusual happen?
I was born in this home by a midwife, my Aunt Caroline Kuhn, which I am named after. And we lived there until 1938, and then my dad was not feeling too well because he had lost the 4 boys that usually would have been a great help in his years, but they had passed away during the flu period. And so there was only 2 or 3 of us girls that could help him in the field, so he decided to retire and move to Napoleon. He built the home in Napoleon by himself with a little help from the neighbors. He had only 1 or 2 days of education in his life, but he could do math problems better than I could. He built the home and we moved in, and for a while we did have cows and we went out back and forth. It's only 2.5 miles, and we milked. And then finally we retired, and he just had a big garden in town, and it was so easy for us for us kids, because we could just run across the block, and there was the school in Napoleon, which I attended for 12 years. Graduated in 1945, and I got the Alumnus Award of the Year in 1997 from Napoleon High. One story I have to tell you. While we were juniors in high school, 10 of us kids, silly kids, we could have known better than 10 of us trying to skip a day or half a day from school. We went out to the Wildwoods, which was just north of town, about a mile or so. And we thought, well, we're going to have fun this afternoon. What do you know? Here comes Mr. Pritchett, the superintendent. So we scattered. The girls stayed, but the boys ran all directions. So we went back to school. We had to stay after school, I think, a month every day. And I think that taught us a lesson. While I went to high school, 2 years I worked for the Wentz and Grins clothing store, plus 2 years after I graduated until I was married. And that was a wonderful place to work at. Oh, the new clothes would come in and we could pick out whatever, and we really got a nice price on them too. And
I'd like to kind of go back to the beginning. Do you remember what your earliest memory is when you were a child?
I was only, I think, 13 years old. We would run across this people's yards. They were just everything was open then. and we'd run over there. And of course, the first grade, I had Miss Hartnett. She was a great teacher, but boy, we did something wrong, and we had to put our hands out, and the ruler came on our hands. Second grade was Miss Greenfelder. She was very nice, too. I was always had to sing for her. For every program, I was on the list to do a song or two.
What kind of songs would you sing?
Oh my goodness, what did we sing? One time we had an operetta, but I can't think of the name of it right now. And it was fun. Now we go to the third grade, though. That was Miss House. Miss House was the strictest teacher I ever had.
What would she do?
She would, you had to listen right now and answer right now or else. Okay, and the fourth grade was Miss Ingelking. She had taught school there forever too. Like all of these four grades, we had them teachers ever since I can remember, and afterwards, you know. But the fifth grade, I think it was Mr. Newman. I can't quite recall. And the sixth grade? Well, now I'm blank. We go to the seventh grade. That was Mr. from Bernstead, North Dakota. I can't remember your name now. And we go to the eighth grade was Mr. Barthel. Then into high school, we had so many teachers I can't recall. But Mr. Long and Mr. Pritchett were the main superintendents, I believe, at that time.
What do you remember the most about high school?
High school, it was fun. It was the best days of our lives, I think. We had no concerns, you know. And
What were the classes like?
the classes we had, in our class, we had 27. No, I take that back. We had 2 of them that graduated with us, but they were in the Army. Now comes junior proms or something. There were no boys. They were all gone into service. We, for our junior prom, we decided we'd have a roller skating party. It was fun, but it was sure different. But for the senior prom, we had a regular nice, we decorated the gym, and we had a nice dinner, and we had a dance.
What did you wear?
We wore formals. Yeah.
What did yours look like?
Mine was pink with long sleeves, sheer sleeves, and it had a bodice. Real pretty.
How did you do your hair?
My hair, 110 pin curls, bobby pins. We did pin curls all over. I do have a picture of my graduation, so I'll show it to you later on. And let me see, what else did we do?
Well, what kind of dances would you dance at the prom?
Oh, we had polkas, we had waltzes, we had everything. For our skip day, I remember we went to Bismarck. You know, it was not very often that we got to go to Bismarck in our days. We went to Bismarck and we went to a movie, and it was called Frisco Cell. I remember it was very good. Probably the second movie we ever saw, who knows, you know. But later on, and even the junior and senior years, we did go to dances. Oh my, we went to Bernstead one night. That was probably on a Monday night, and probably on a Friday night we probably went to Zeeland. Now, Zeeland was about, I'd say, 30, 40 miles away. So we piled into a Model A car. 10 of us kids, no dates. We just had fun, fun, fun. We danced all night, came back. The next morning, of course, had to go to work. That's when I was working at the store already. So we had, for movies, we had a movie show hall in Napoleon. And they had them Saturday and Sunday evenings. So we usually went to the first show. There was 2 shows. We went to the first show, and then after that we went out and had parties.
What were the shows like in the theater? What did the theater look like then?
The theater was, I would say it held approximately 200 probably. It's still here. It's called the Downtowner, but they have a eating place in there, or a meeting place, I should say. We had fun. We had a good time. And
what about those parties you went to afterwards? What were those like?
Afterwards, we never drank. We just had plain fun and giggled and laughed and did silly things, I imagine, at that time.
Any that you remember or that stick out?
Well, let me see. There was Honey Bruner. Olson was Eileen. Let's see. Honey Bruner, Olson, Ruby Pavrood, Florence Mitzel. I'm telling you the maiden names now. Let's see. Honey, Ruby. We had a ball. We were great chums, and when one had a ride to go, like to Burnstead to the dance, she'd say, "Can such and such come along? Can I come along, or somebody else?" Sure. So we all piled in the cars, And the dance ticket was $0.25. So we'd have $0.25 for a ticket to go to the dance, and we'd still have a dime left over for we could buy a bottle of pop, or we could buy a popcorn or whatever.
How much money did you make while you were working?
I started with $50, and when I retired after 4 years of work, I got $75 a month. That was great money. Telling you, you could really buy a lot of money with that.
What kind of things would you buy?
Clothes.
How about shoes?
Oh, shoes. I hate to tell you, but I had almost 100 pair of shoes when I was married. My husband said, "Are these all yours?" But they were. So it all was spent. Had a good time.
What about life on the farm before you moved to town?
Okay.
What was life on the farm like? Can you describe that?
On the farm. All right. When we were kids, like I said, we'd have to go, and there was people came around. Usually, gentlemen came around with a truck, and they would load up old wire or old bones from cattle when cattle died, and they were all nice and white, clean already, laying out in the fields or pastures. And we picked the wool from the sheep that when the sheep used to get out of the fences, they'd leave wool. So we picked that off, put it in a bag, sold that, went out in the prairies and picked up the bones and sold that. And you know what? We bought a new wagon, a 4-wheel, beautiful wagon. I believe I have a picture of that. I'll probably show you that after a bit with the money that we got from that. Now, we probably got to go to town once a week, which was on Saturday night. Everybody traveled and bought their groceries and took their eggs to town and took their cream to town to sell. And then, of course, the men went into the taverns, and the ladies would visit and do their shopping. I forget one thing. When I was working at this Wentz and Gren's clothing store, the stores were open on Wednesday nights and Saturday nights until 1 p.m. because the people would come to town on those 2 nights and do their things, probably go to a movie, then come back and do their shopping. So at 1 p.m. we were able to go home.
How was that, working those long hours?
Oh, we enjoyed it. I don't know. We were young, you know. And
What kind of chores did you have on the farm?
we didn't have many. We had one little truck, and I know the wheels were shot on that because there was only four girls in my family, 4 girls and I. The 4 brothers had passed away during the flu. They were born before I was. So we probably got a little doll for Christmas. One of each. One girl would get one. And so we shared.
What was Christmas like? How did you
Christmas.
celebrate Christmas?
We had a beautiful little tree, but we had candles on it. And we lit the candles. Can you imagine how dangerous that was? Just while we sang Merry Christmas or wished everybody happy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, then we had to blow them out. And then possibly we'd get a nice bag of goodies. There was an orange in it, an apple in it, peanuts, walnuts, and hard candy. We were thrilled to death because we didn't get much candy in our days. Or oranges, that was a specialty, you know. Probably, I remember one year I got a cute little purse. A little purse. My sister, she was naughty, so she got a bag with an onion in it.
And which sister was this?
That was Dina. Dina was right under me. And Dina and I would have to share clothes. Now, Dina would wear my clothes, and when she came home, when she was done, she'd throw them down on the chair. Would never hang them up, you know. So there was a scrap there, but we got it straightened out anyway. But
You get along pretty well with your sisters?
yes, oh, we still do. I have to show you a picture of my sisters too. In fact, they are coming. They come once a year. One is in Portland, Oregon. One is in Chicago, Illinois. One lives here. And the other sister has passed away. So we visit or we fly. I fly down to see them or out to see them. So we're very close.
What kind of games would you play with your sisters when you were younger?
We only played Ring Around the Rosary. Rosie? Not Rosary. Ring Around the Rosie or hide and seek or throw the ball over the house, whatever you call that one. Those are the main ones, I guess. Oh, we went down to the tree. We had one lone tree down right across from the home, a few steps away, down the hill, and we'd have a tea party. You know, we picked those little yellow buttercup flowers, and we brought the cold water along. That was our soup or our tea party. We had fun. Then the neighbors, they were only a mile away, so we had Annie and Felix Marquart come down and attend our tea parties.
Were they cousins?
They were cousins. Yes.
Were you close to them?
Oh, very close. In fact, Felix was almost like my brother because I didn't have a brother. In fact, when we had to have a school bus going to town because there were no actual school buses, so we had our own. In the wintertime, we had a sleigh with horses. And my sister Meg, she was the oldest one, who is gone now into heaven. But she would run the horses, drive the horses to town, and we'd leave them at the little barn by Grandpa Coon's out in the alley. He had a little barn. And sometimes when after, I think in the wintertime, most of the time, then Felix, he was a mile away, they'd come down, and then he'd be the driver. And he'd drive the school bus into town. In the wintertime, we had kind of a little house that my dad built over the sleighs for the winter. In the summertime, it was on a trailer. So we had a mobile home all the time, going to school. And then Felix would be the driver then. And
how long would it take to get to school?
Oh, only 20 minutes probably. We went across the field to the cemetery and then down the hill. So it was only about a mile, actually.
What about your aunts and uncles? Did they visit frequently? Or?
Oh, my aunts and uncles. We had the best time. This was during the summertime. Every Sunday, all the aunts and uncles of the Coon side got together. There were 7 of us. Say it was at our place this time, at George and Elizabeth Marquart's place. We would prepare a big bowl of potato salad, a big bowl of fruit salad, fried chickens, I don't know how many. Many chickens. And you know, those had to be caught in the morning. There were no refrigerators, remember. They had to be caught in the morning, cleaned, pan-fried, and have them ready till the company came.
How long would that take, the whole process?
It took a couple hours, that's for sure.
Did you and your sisters all help your mother with that?
Oh, we all had to help. Yes. And then the company came. We had a cousin, her name was Kate Nygum. She was married to a wolf, and she lived in Wishick. And the ladies in Wishick made beautiful quilts, handmade quilts. So every Sunday, we probably got together every other Sunday. That's probably how it was. So every Sunday, every time she came from Wishick, she brought a quilt. It was satin on one side and cotton on the other side, and all hand quilted, stitch by stitch. Now the person that had all of the company coming that day, she could buy the quilt. I believe it was only $10. I believe that's all that they charged at that time. And then all the cousins came, and the aunts and uncles. There was the Myers, there was the Nygums, there was the John Coons, there was the Pete Coons, there was the Steve Richters, and then ours. Oh, and Aunt Caroline Coon and Father Coon. And we all gathered at this one place, and we had a ball. One time, at my other cousin's place, where was it? It was at the John Coon's place. We gathered another time with all of us. Now the kids we were all we were all playing around the tank, the water tank. My cousin Al Richter was a demon. and we were standing around trying to squirt each other, you know. And pretty soon, he thought, that's enough of this. So he flipped over. Irene Nygum was another cousin, into the tank. Oh my gosh. We were all dressed up in our Sunday clothes, you know. And Irene couldn't swim, so I jumped right in with my new shoes on, all my new clothes, and I grabbed her by the hair and I pulled her out. She would have drowned, you know. So thank goodness but I sure caught heck for getting all my clothes ruined.
But you saved your cousin.
But I saved my cousin. And I believe Irene is coming to see us this year too. She lives in Arizona. So I'm sure glad you're alive, Irene.
Were family gatherings usually like that? Or
Yes, when one went, we all went.
What kind of activities would you do?
Played cards. Oh, another thing we made, when we went to Aunt Maggie Richter's house, to Steve and Maggie Richter's house, we had homemade ice cream all the time. They had kind of a root cellar or out in the barn someplace, and they put ice in there in the wintertime, and they covered it with straw bales, or not bales, we didn't have bales at that time, hay or whatever it was. And when we gathered at their house when it was their turn, we had homemade ice cream. We would churn and churn and churn, all by hand, you know. And with that ice cream, we did not want sweets. I remember we all had soda crackers with the ice cream. And to this day, I enjoy soda crackers with my ice cream. And I don't know how many churns, how many ice cream makers full, freezers full.
Did you have to make more than one batch of ice cream?
Oh,
for your
yes,
family?
yeah, we had to. But there was enough of us as kids to keep it churning. It was fun. Another day gone, another night was spent having fun. And of course the moms and dads, they all had fun playing cards or whatever, telling stories. Oh, my mom and Teresa's mom, Teresa was a Meyer, and Aunt Maggie was a Richter, and Caroline was a Coon, and all the rest too. They would pull jokes on one another. Like, for instance, would be April 1, April Fools. One day, this was April Fool's Day, my Uncle John Coon, he went uptown in the morning. And of course, that's another thing. They all lived together in Napoleon. Okay, on one block, on the main street, as you come into town, on the main drive, as you come into town, it'll be about the third house down from the north on the left side as you came to town was Aunt Julia and John Nigam's home. Next to it was Grandma and Grandpa's home, Coon. Next to that was Uncle John and Aunt Caroline's home. 3 in that one block. George and Elizabeth Marquart, my mom and dad, lived right across the street. That was the home that my dad built there. 1 block over east lived Aunt Maggie and Uncle Steve Richter. Aunt Caroline Coon lived, and Father Coon lived with Grandma and Grandpa. About 2 blocks, 3 blocks the other way west, and about 1 block down lived Uncle Pete and Aunt Elizabeth Coon. About another 2 blocks down lived Aunt Rose and Uncle John Meyer. I think I have them all now, 7 of them. They all lived in Napoleon. When they retired from the farm, you know, they all moved into town.
So were you pretty close to them?
Oh, we were all close. We were all very close. Very close-knit family.
Was religion a
We
big
were,
deal in your family?
we all belonged to St. Catherine's is in Braddock. I cannot say that. It is St. Philip's in Napoleon. We all belonged there.
And were your parents pretty strict about religious
Oh, my. Comes Lent. No more dances, girls. No more eating meat on Friday. Of course, that was all the time then. When we had to go and stay to Stations of the Cross every day, When I got done working at the store, I stopped at the church first before I went home. Mass the folks went every day. Every day they went to Mass in the morning. We went, especially holy days and Sundays. And during school we couldn't go every day, I guess, but that was just the thing to do.
And what was the typical Mass like when you were a child?
It was in Latin, and we could not understand anything. It was just, we just followed along, and I sang in the choir too. At St. Philip's, we sang German one time, a few times, because we had, what's his name? Now, we had Pius Kuhn as a organ player, and he had us sing German songs, and we had German masses too. You know, the homilies were in German at that time. But soon things changed.
How so?
I can't remember what year it was. It's been at least 20 years, I would say, that it's in English now. So
Mass was done in Latin up until that point?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, you said a little bit about singing in German. Did you grow up speaking German?
Yes, I can speak German. Not the good high German, but the slang German. Ich kann noch ein bisschen.
And what does that mean?
I can still a little bit.
Now, did you learn English in school, or did you learn
No,
it at home?
we learned it at home because I had an older sister. Of course, she probably had she knew some, but not much. And of course, my mom, when she came over from Russia, I've just thought about that. She was 19 when she came over, so she went to high school in Russia. But she had to teach herself how to read the paper, and she could read the print and write a little, not too much, but a little. But she could read the print for the newspaper. The writing was very hard for her.
What do you remember the most about your mother?
She was the best cook out. Oh, and she was strict. Oh my gosh, strict when I went out on a date. You be home by such and such, or else. And she was waiting. She was waiting, and if she wasn't in the door, she was in the bedroom. She knew when I came home. But I thank her for that.
Does she talk a lot about when she came over from Russia?
You know, not much. All I don't know why we did not have them have a tape made or something. I remember sometimes she'd say, "Oh, this fruit is just not like at home," she'd always say. Because they lived close to the Black Sea, you know. They had that wonderful, wonderful fruit, and she said it was so much, much better being picked off ripe from the tree, you know. And at home, she said, Grandpa Coon must have been kind of on the wealthy side, not wealthy, but more so than some of the others, because he had those nice 2 black stallion, a pair of horses, that they had a beautiful buggy, I guess, when they went out shopping, they used that. And the neighbors would say, "Oh my, here comes the rich Coon family." It wasn't very, very nice, but I mean, it was good for them, you know. And Grandpa also had that big white stallion riding horse, which I have a photo of it also. And
What do you remember about your grandfather?
Grandpa Coon, I can remember him. During school, we went to a catechism, and then they didn't want to drive every day, so we stayed in at Grandma and Grandpa's. It was only, I think, probably a week or 2 weeks. And, okay, Grandpa Coon would sit at the table, and he'd go clink, 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 clink on the table like this. He was always humming. It was really neat to see a man, He was happy all the time. What can I do for you? In German, of course. Well, Grandpa, let's play Durak. Well, what's Durak? It was a card game. And Grandma sometimes would play with us. Sometimes she was too busy. But we had a good time with Grandpa. Now, in later years, though, we were still living on the farm. I can remember Aunt Caroline lived with Grandma and Grandpa, and she had a Christmas tree. I would say it was 8 feet tall, and in those days we had a little 2 feet one maybe, but she had one in the corner of the living room. And of course they had electric lights in town in Napoleon. They lived in Napoleon, and I bet she had 500 lights on there. When we came to town, us kids, we just adored it, And at Christmas time, we got to, after Christmas midnight mass, we always got to stop at Grandma and Grandpa Coon's in town, and we had a lunch, and then we went back home. But
what would your grandmother cook for lunch?
Galadets, which
that?
was pig's feet. Oh, that was a must. And homemade bread, Kuchen. Everybody knows what Kuchen is by now, I hope. It is a sweet dough with custard on the top with either prunes or apples or rhubarb, whatever. And boiled eggs. What else? It's about all I can remember, but there was always plenty of food around.
What other kinds of traditional Germans from Russia dishes would she make?
Pigs in a blanket, which are called, what are they called? Cabbage rolls. Yeah, we called them pigs in a blanket. Borscht soup, which is vegetable soup. Nipfle soup, which everybody I think knows what Nipfle soup is now. A milk soup with dough gobs in it, cut in it. Of course, I picked mine in it. The rest of them use a scissors, put it on a little roll and use a scissors and cut them off. But I picked mine, that's faster. What else? Lots of chicken and roast beef, pork. Because they had their own all the time. They raised their own. Yeah, we always had plenty of food to eat. But when we went grocery shopping, we just bought it with the milk check the cream check or the egg check when we sold eggs. The most important thing was coffee. We made our own butter. Let's see, coffee, and we made our own bread. Once in a while, apples, a box of apples. Go ahead.
Did your mother have a large garden? Did you do a
Oh my, they had big gardens. They raised all their potatoes. And for flour, we took a load of wheat to the mill in Tenvik, North Dakota, and they ground the flour, and we took home our flour by the 100 pound bags, maybe 4 or 5 at a time.
How long would it take to get through one bag?
It didn't take very long. I'll bet you in a month it was gone. Because, well, they baked twice a week usually. And of course, sugar, they bought that by 100 pounds. And they put it up in the attic or wherever they could store it, so it was free from everything, so it kept good. What else did we buy? Once in a while, she'd buy a box of crackers. That was kind of a specialty. We had that good old halva. I don't know if you know what halva is.
Explain what it is.
It's Halvah. In fact, I've got some in the refrigerator. I should get it and show it to you. It is a sweet made out of eggs and what do you suppose it's made with? Must be flour in it, I imagine. It's a sweet delicacy. I like it to eat it with a piece of bread, but my kids think, Mom, you're nuts. That's just a sweet little piece of dessert, you know.
Did you grow up eating it with bread?
I always did. Yeah, we always ate it with a piece of bread, homemade bread.
So many of the things you eat today, you ate.
I still do. Mm-hmm. Right. And you can get chocolate revel or you can get vanilla. So, right now I think I have the vanilla.
What other kinds of traditional desserts would be made at your family's home?
Kuchen for sure. And, Mom made the best apple pies all the time. Rhubarb, because we had the rhubarb growing in the yard. Those are some of the, of course, ice cream. We made a homemade ice cream all the time.
What was your favorite dessert?
My favorite dessert was an apple. Mom always said when she bought the box of apples, 1 a day so they last longer.
How many came in a box?
Oh, I suppose 100, I bet you, because it was a big box. And they were very reasonable at that time. I think they were $1 a box. Yeah, so, yep. They always said, don't let myself get into the apple box because the kids said they'll be gone in a hurry. Yeah, so.
And what was, your mother made obviously a lot of food. What was your favorite meal that she would cook for you?
Nipfla. She made nipfla, or she made cheese buttons. Cheese buttons are like raviola with cheese in them, cottage cheese in them. Or she made that good borscht soup, that vegetable.
What goes in that?
Vegetable soup, anything in vegetables that you can think of. You make it with beef, cook your beef and use that for the broth. Great. She even made greeneborscht.
And what is that?
Now it says green vegetable soup made out of lots of dill, the nice green dill, and beet leaves. Then you add your potatoes and your. Some need to add beets, but my mother didn't until she boiled them so that the redness didn't get into the soup. She didn't like that. And other vegetables, go in it, just like vegetable soup. And it was good. I used to make it, but my kids didn't care for the green soup, they always called it. So, okay, I'll make vegetable soup.
What was mealtime like when you were a child? Did you all have specific seating arrangements, or what would your parents do? Or?
Yes, we were all in our places. We all had our places. And the first thing was, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. never forget, my dad would be the leader. And we had wonderful meals all the time because, you know, they had supplies on hand. They had their chickens, you know, they had their beef, they had their pork, and of course their hams, they cured them. How, I don't know, but they cured them. And you know what we did with them? Being we had no refrigerators, out in the granary, we wrapped them good with newspapers or whatever we had, gunny sacks, put a gunny sack around it, put them in the grain, and they kept just perfect. It was cool in there, you know.
How long would they keep?
Until we butchered the next time, I suppose I don't know how often they butchered the pork, but of course the chickens was every day, and every time we wanted chicken, we had a butcher. And then, I remember now too, to keep the milk and the watermelon cold, we tied a string around the gallon. We had in gallon pails. The gallon pails were empty syrup pails. Our syrup came in gallon pails, and we always mixed the syrup with the peanut butter and put it on our bread. Always. Dark Caro syrup with peanut butter. Put it on our bread. That was a everyday occasion, I think. Now, with the empty syrup pails, we put the milk in there, tied a rope around the handle, let her down the well pit, which was down maybe 10 feet or 20 feet maybe, some of them. And it was cool down there, so when we pulled that up, we had cold milk. Also the watermelon, that went in a big gunny sack or wherever, went down there, and it was delicious.
Would you do anything special to the watermelon?
No, we just had big slices. That was a treat. And then, of course, we raised watermelon, too, in the gardens, and cantaloupe. Muskmelon, we called them at that time. I don't know. I think we raised everything edible. All the potatoes, for sure.
So, you grew up in the dirty 30s and whatnot. What was that like on the farm?
You know, I can't remember much. Only when we went out in the field, we had to go out to the field to help. My dad had the header. My mom was on the header box. That's where the header would cut the grain and it would elevate it into the header box, which had to follow perfectly. I was on the reins with the horses, and of course sometimes I wasn't strong. I was only 6, 7, 8 years old when I had to do that. I wasn't strong enough. Sometimes the horses would go too fast, then the grain would go on the ground, you know. And my dad would holler in the back, slow her down or speed her up, one of the two, whatever. Well, and my mom was on there on the box, and then she had to go on the stack when we unloaded it, on the stack. And that was hard work for a lady, but she did it all the time, pregnant or not pregnant, you know. She was And I remember on the header box, one side, of course, of the header box was higher than the lower side where it would elevate the grain in. On that heavy side, grasshoppers, that was full of grasshoppers. You couldn't put a pin between them in those days. It was so dry, you know. And of course, the temperature was hot in the hundreds or 90s for sure.
How did your parents cope with the grasshopper problem?
I don't know if they did anything in those days, really. They were waiting for the pelicans or for the white seagulls to come, so, you know, to eat. I think that's about all they had. I can't remember them ever spraying. I don't think there was such a thing.
Did they ever lose fields because of the...
Oh, yeah, they would eat. You could see. They would eat the tops off. There was nothing left, you know, but they still had to go and try and scrape off whatever they could, you know.
Were those times pretty tough for your family?
Yes, they were, but we managed. Now comes, I know Dad had to borrow one time from the bank, and I think it was $150, and he just could not wait until he could pay that back, and it probably took more than 1 year. Now it was time to hay, though, in the hayfield. My oldest sister, Meg, was on the mower. She did all the mowing with horses, 2 horses. I was on, they called the hay bucker. It had, one horse was over on this side, then there was, what do you call them, hay teeth. They were made of wood, I remember, and one horse was on the other side. Now we were working in the kind of a slough. And of course the cattle were in there before, and they were tumped down, and so there was piles of dirt. If I'd hit one of those piles of dirt with a wooden hay, I would probably break it off as I was picking up the hay, you know. My poor dad, he was sick. He had ulcers so bad. Half of the time he would lay by the haystack in the shade, you know, and we'd have to, us kids and Mom would have to be working because he was not very healthy. But anyway, then my dad had to stop, and he had to put that new tooth in the hay bucker. Well, anyway, that was done. And in those days, we bucked it all on a pile. When it got high enough, then my mom was up on the pile again, leveling up, making a kind of a nice haystack, you know. But we managed. Pretty soon it was time to retire. I thought my dad had to retire. He was only 38 years old when we moved to town, when he built the home in town.
And that was a big transition.
That was a big change.
Carol, we covered some things in the last tape that, well, I'm just going to start over. I'd like to talk a little bit about weddings and traditions. Can you tell us how you met your spouse?
I sure will. We went to all of these dances. One time we heard there was a going away party in Kintyre because all of these boys were leaving for service. This night we went to Kintyre, a bunch of kids again, and it was a going away party for Frank Mock. And I thought, he's a pretty good looking guy. Well, so we had a lovely dance, and they had food, and they had all kinds of activities going on, and to say goodbye to. He was leaving in a couple of weeks, I guess. So at that night when we drove over, one of the girls said, see, I gotta wink at that guy. And I thought, you can wink. I'm going to try it. So, okay. Wouldn't you know, he asked me to dance. So we had a nice conversation, and he said, you're working in the store over there. I have to go over and get some luggage before I go. Okay, I'll be there, I said. Finally, he asked me for lunch that night, so that was the beginning. What a wonderful party that was. And that was in 1946. Am I right? Yeah, I think so.
And did you stay in touch when he left?
A letter every day. Now, my girlfriend, Ruby, when we had noon hour up here at school, every day she'd have to run down with me to see if I got something in the mail. Oh, I did. Sometimes it wasn't every day, but it was pretty often. Then I had a birthday. I should have wore my necklace. I've got it in the other room. I got a nice locket with the Navy emblem on it. I still have it. That was for birthday, and for graduation I got a bracelet. I still have that too. I've got to bring them out and show them to you. And so it went. And then he had a leave coming. I think it was a 2-week leave. Here comes Frankie. They all called him Frankie at that time. So we went to the movie and we went to dances, and then pretty soon he had to leave, go back again. He was still in Idaho at that time, and then he was transferred to San Diego, California. And pretty soon it was time to visit. So his sister Helen and I took the train from Bismarck. There was still a train, and that was a wonderful ride to San Diego. Visited for a while, and then I had to go back home again because I was working. So then in December of, I gave you the wrong dates before. Must have been 1944 when he entered, because in 46 he was dishonorable discharge in 46. And then he came over to visit, and pretty soon the next year I got a diamond. This was in August, and we got married in October of 1947.
Can you describe the proposal?
We went to the movie, and he says, I got you a little gift today. Well, so he had the little box, and I was hoping, and it was a very pleasant night.
Did he do anything special, like get down on his knee, or?
No, we were in the car. It was before we went into the movie, so I don't know if I saw much of that movie.
Can you describe the wedding?
Our wedding was beautiful, but you kids will think it was so different. We got married on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock at St. Philip's Catholic Church in Napoleon. We had a wonderful ceremony by Father Greiner. Can't forget Father Greiner. And after that ceremony, we went to Mom and Dad's home, George and Elizabeth Marquart's home in town. They had prepared a wonderful dinner, beginning with soup, fried chicken, wedding cake, everything.
What did your wedding cake look like?
My wedding cake was a three-layer made by a friend, but I can't remember which one did it. It was a 3-layer cake. Now, excuse me, we did not serve that cake. because they said they were going to have a shower and a dance that evening, and they were going to auction the cake, which they did. There were bids from the Kintyre gang and the Braddock gang and the Napoleon gang, and you know, it sold for $500.
What did you do with that?
They gave it to us, and we served it for lunch the next day, I think it was. Oh, the Napoleon people were bidding against the Braddock people, and vice versa, and $500. Can you imagine? Now, after the wedding dance, which lasted until 2 in the morning, and of course the shower, they had a shower for us with that. In those days, they combined them. We had to get Grandpa's truck. We had to haul home. We received all of our furniture. My mom and dad gave me the kitchen and dinette set, the couch and the chair, and the bedroom set. We received end tables, floor lamp, other lamps, dishes. We needed nothing. The only thing we had to buy was a heater that we put in the middle of the living room, not in the middle, but in the living room, and that would supply our heat in our farm home.
What did your home look like?
My home is still there to this day. It had, you went in, you had a kitchen. We had a little room next to the kitchen, which was a washer, no dryer at that time. Then we had a living room and 1 bedroom downstairs. On the upper level, we had 2 bedrooms. Very nice. And before that, my sisters and my mom and his family, sisters and mother and dad and dads, they came over and they painted. They wallpapered the living room. They painted the kitchen, wallpapered the other bedroom, the bedroom downstairs, put up curtains. It was wonderful. Everything was new to me.
What was it like having your own home?
It was great. It was nice, yes.
So how did your parents feel about Frank?
Well, they didn't know him too well, but when he was home, the last year, you know, they really met him. He said, does he go to church? Yes. He was liked pretty well. Yep. They thought he was a pretty good guy.
Did you have a honeymoon?
I'll tell you about our honeymoon. We took the truck home to the farm with all of the wonderful gifts. And what do you think? We had the threshers at our house. The threshing was not done. It was in October, but it was a late fall. So, the next morning, here comes the men to work. Frank had to go out in the field and help. That was the goings on in those years. In fact, we didn't have money to go on a honeymoon either. So.
Did you take one later?
Oh, later we took many trips, but it was wonderful.
Was your wedding a traditional German-Russian wedding?
Yes.
Can you describe how?
At the reception or at the dance and social, they were singing German songs, and I don't know what they were singing about, but they were singing. Frank could understand some, but he couldn't talk German very well. He could say a couple of words, but But it all went, and they did their regular wedding performance. First the bride and the groom, I don't even know how it went anymore. And then the bridesmaids would take the groom, I think, and the best men would dance with the bride. I don't know how it went anymore, but they knew how to each one was led to each other for each dance. The regular performance going on.
Did they do money dances?
Yes, that was for the garter dance, I think.
Ooh, can you explain that?
Let me see. How was that? It was $1 a dance, I think. And they had to line up, I guess, or whatever, however it went, yeah. And of course, then they auctioned off the cake, too. I told you that, yeah. They had their fun, polkas and waltzes almost all night till early morning.
What was your favorite dance?
The waltz, I think.
Did you learn to dance at a young age?
Yes, we were dancing when we were little tights already. Yeah.
And who taught you?
We went to barn dances.
Oh,
We had the barn dances. You crawl up the ladder. There was just a ladder on the wall. You crawl up the ladder and had the polkas and the waltzes up there. Yeah, that was common.
How often would you do those?
Oh, 2-3 times in the summertime. Yeah, go from farm to farm. Everybody would come.
Was
Wonderful.
that one of the main ways that farm kids were able to socialize with one another?
Yeah, because they were all invited, they all came. And I suppose they probably had a dime or a quarter to throw in for the help pay for the music,
Was it live music then?
Sure, accordion.
So who would usually do the music?
Oh, golly, the neighbors or anybody that could play, the accordion. Maybe sometimes there was a drum.
So it just varied.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, is there anything else regarding wedding traditions that you would like to add?
We had to travel to Linton, North Dakota to have our pictures taken. We did that in the afternoon before the wedding dance in the evening. And because there was no photographers that came out, we all had to go to them. And
how far away was Linton?
Linton was about 40 miles. That was quite a drive. I know my sister and her husband took us.
Now, who was in your wedding?
In our wedding, my bridesmaid was my sister Dina Marquart Graham, and Frank's sister Irene Mock Zotnik. And then I took Felix Marquart, my cousin, almost my brother, as my best man, and Pius Mock was an uncle, but he was, I think, only possibly a year older than Frank. And then we had Mary Kay Richter, was my little flower girl.
Did anything interesting happen at the wedding that you remember today?
Yes, Mary Kay forgot her basket of flowers in church, so there was no photo of the flower girl with the basket.
What did she say about that? Did you ever ask her where her flowers were?
After she was growing up, I said, "Where was the flowers?" "I don't know." She was so small. She was only 4 years old, I guess. But, yeah.
Now, after you were married, what was life like for you at that point?
Oh, my dear. It was wonderful, but I was used to living in the city of Napoleon. Now I'm out on the farm about 20 miles away. We got married in October. It already had started to be cold. And of course, usually by Christmas Eve, we went to Christmas Eve Mass. On the way home, wouldn't you know, it started snowing. And it snowed and it snowed. Now, what did I do? We were on the farm, and of course the pantry was full of food. We had all kinds of food. Everything was, we milked cows. I didn't have to milk much because I was the slowest milker in the world, I guess, and I didn't care. But we had chickens, and we had hogs, and we had cows, so we had our eggs, we had our cream, and we had plenty of groceries, flour and stuff at home, and sugar and whatever we needed. I did try to bake bread. It wasn't too good to start with, but it had to go sometimes. We made a lot of pancakes, and we made a lot of ice cream. But this all was fine and dandy. But you know, I got homesick. I got homesick for Napoleon, for my folks. Well, my dear husband, I'll try and get you out. The roads were blocked already. This was November, December. You know, they were blocked for 3 months at a time. Okay, so we had a Model A. We took the Model A, and we took the horses and the sleigh. We went over the hills and over the plains, almost over the fences. I took the fences down because we went cross country tried to get into town, to Braddock. It must have took us a half a day because we didn't get to Braddock. We started in the morning. We didn't get there till the afternoon. By then, the train had gone by already to go to Napoleon. So I stayed overnight at Frank's folks lived in town, Anton and Mary Mock. So we said goodbye. We'll see you whenever. The next morning, I took the Sioux Line train to Napoleon. There I was met by my parents, George and Elizabeth Marquart. So I had a good time visiting over in Napoleon, but it only lasted 5 days. Then I was homesick. I wanted to go back to my honey. Now, no telephone. How do I do that? Well, so I thought, well, in 5, 6, 7 days, he should think I'm coming back home. So I took the train. I went back to Braddock. And then, of course, the roads were still blocked. But there was some friends that were living west of Braddock. They had built a homemade snowmobile. They used an airplane propeller, and they had skis. So one day, they came to town after I was in Braddock, and I said, you know, I would like to get home to the farm, but I'll take you. His name was Tony Urick. Well, I says, are you sure you want to? We have to go over the rocks and over the fences. Don't worry about it. I got loaded up on that snowmobile, and we went over the hills, over the plains, got home. Oh my gosh, was that a thrill? After being away for a few days, you know, I wanted to be back.
What was it like seeing Frank again after?
Oh, it was wonderful. And I don't think I got homesick again to go to Napoleon. Now, being there was no mail service either, you know, about once a month we had our dear mailman had an airplane. His name was Clell Rambo. And about once a month he'd come over the house, circle the house, and we'd run outside. We knew, oh God, it's life, somebody is here. And he dropped down a bundle of mail, and of course he dropped down a carton of cigarettes for Frank too, when he was still smoking. That was a thrill to have mail. Of course, we couldn't get any mail to go out, but anyway, we got some of the papers. Wonderful.
How often would they bring out the papers?
About once a month, maybe 6 weeks, something like that. They'd drop down the mail, and it was a thrill because, you know, you were isolated out there. Thank the Lord that nobody got sick.
Were you out on the farm when you had your children?
I had one son out on the farm, Gary. Gary was born on the farm. He was, let's see, how old was he? He was 5 years old. And then we purchased the Super Value grocery store. It was a general store because we not only had groceries, we had Lee jeans and Wrangler jeans and boots, shoes, everyday clothes, and things like that. And Ked shoes, the tennis shoes, you know, but on the farm, we did not have electricity either. That was another thing. So we had bought, that's one thing we had to buy too, was a washer, but it was a gas motor. And of course, I could never start that thing. I would flood it all the time, be crying and bawling till my husband came from the field. Then comes the iron. It was a white gas or whatever they called it. You had to pump air into the little container back there and use a match. And poof, it would start. Scared the daylights out of a guy. But it worked. And for lights, we had kerosene lamps until we got battery motors to put down in the basement. And then we sparingly could use our lights and our radio. We got a radio then too.
Oh, what kind of radio programs would you listen to?
Oh my gosh, Ma Perkins, guess whatever. Not very much. It was mostly the news, you know, because we had to save those batteries.
How often would you listen to it?
Oh, maybe 3 times a day for a few minutes. Yep. And our outdoor toilet was about 100 feet away, I suppose. Had to run out there in the dark. Oh, boy.
How long was it before you had one in the house?
Not until, when did we get electricity? I think it was in 51, I believe, we got electricity in the house. And then we got the refrigerator too. We had nothing before that. And before that, we had to carry the water up the hill for washing clothes and everything. Oh, my.
So what kind of a transition was it going from no electricity to having electricity?
It was tough. It was tough, but newly married, I didn't care much. It was just great to be out there with my dear husband.
And when you did get electric out to your farm, how did that change your life?
Oh, that was way different. I remember Gary. We had him in the crib. He must have been 4 years old, probably, because he was still in the crib, and the switch was right there. He was always fiddling with that. It was so much fun for him to turn on a light, you know. And then when we moved into Braddock, we had the store there, and right by the store we had an apartment right there. We had well, we added on another bedroom, so we had 2 bedrooms and a nice living room, kitchen, bathroom. And of course, it was so handy for the people that wanted to get into the store after hours. Knock on the door, may I have a can of corn, or may I have a loaf of bread? What could you say? Yes, we'll be right out. They had to go around the other door. We'll open the store. Another thing, the store after Mass in the morning on Sundays, here comes the eggs and here comes the people. Did their shopping on Sunday morning after Mass too, because some didn't come in on Saturday. Usually Saturday nights. If we were open on Saturday nights, Saturday evenings they came in, they took their cream. We had a cream station in town. They took their cream to the cream station. They brought their eggs to the store. They went to we had a theater. They went to the movie. And we had cafes, and we had always 2 bars in Braddock. So after they were done at the movie, sometimes, then they came to do their shopping. So we were open till 1:30 also on Saturday evenings. But Braddock was a booming town at that time. In fact, when we were there, we had 3 grocery stores in Braddock. Not only me, but there was 2 other grocery stores.
How big was the town then? How big was it?
The town was never any big. Well, I would say it was about 50, 60 people living in town then, where there's only 20 now. But we had families. We had high school. We had Braddock grade school and high school until 1980, I think it was. But we had 2 buses going out to get some families. Some families had 12 kids. Some had 10. I had 6, so. And in town there was people, well, everybody had large families in those days. Yeah. We had our own, the kids had their own baseball, basketball team, football teams, all in town with just city kids. Now there are no children in Braddock.
When you were younger, did they do all of those baseball games and such when you were at school?
Oh, my husband was the pitcher of the baseball team in Braddock for many years. We went to state to Jamestown to the state tournaments, and we took first one year, I don't remember which year it was, for the baseball.
Was he older than you in high school?
Frank was 2 years older. Yes.
So did you know him in high school then?
Barely. 2 years. Yep.
What kind of activities would you participate in?
But he went to Kintyre to school. Kintyre High School. Activities. Well, we played, in high school, we played basketball. And, what do you call, not soccer, what do you call it?
Volleyball?
Volleyball. I was going to say soccer, it's not soccer. Volleyball. And we had class plays, and I played in the band one year, the big drum. Boom, boom.
What about the different classes? What kind of classes did they teach at that time?
Oh, we had many classes. Many, what should I say?
Like subjects and...
Yeah, geometry, English 1, English 2, English 3, and typing, history, world history,
what was your
sciences. I think history. I think that was. Mm-hmm.
Did they have electives at that point, like art and?
Oh yeah, they had art. Yeah, we had. I was no good in that.
So you took theater and band then?
Yeah. We had lots of school plays, I remember one, Antiques of Anne. And what was I, Mary, I think.
How long would you practice for these plays?
Oh, we practiced a couple months. And almost every day, usually during one class, you know.
Were these musicals or just plays?
They were just different ones.
What was your coursework like in high school? Did you spend a lot of time doing homework?
Well, we had homework, but not too much. We had some. And because you worked after school, you know, you went down after school and worked at the store. And in the evening, we wanted to go to the dances.
And how often would you do those dances?
Well, twice a week for sure. We'd go from town to town. All the kids gathered up and went in carloads.
Would you get a different dress for every dance, or?
Well, not really, but I had a lot of clothes. Yeah.
Now you mentioned prom once before. How did the different students? How did you prepare for prom?
We all did. The juniors and the seniors had to go down to the gym and decorate.
What would you decorate it with?
Crepe paper, streamers. We had to cut the streamers sometimes too, because I don't think there were any cut ones at that time. Crepe paper, that was the main thing. Wires and we worked for days at that too.
What about music?
Music, what did we have for? We had bands.
Can you describe what a typical date would have been like when you were younger?
A typical date with Frank, he was always late. Of course, he was a busy guy. Goodness sake, he was working for his dad in the shop, and then he was doing the farm work. He was always 15, 20, half hour late. But then we'd go to the late show, to the late movie, or we'd go to a dance, which he didn't care to dance much, but he still danced. And after that, we'd go out for lunch. Fun day, fun night.
And how frequently would you go out?
Once a week, because it was quite a ways, 20 miles, you know, away.
Was it him coming in or you coming into town?
He had to come into Napoleon. No. Mm-hmm.
What was the attitude of the older generation towards dance halls and dances?
Oh, they loved to dance. Everybody danced in those days. Everybody. And from little on already, they brought them to dances. They brought their kids along, you know.
So there was an open dance for everybody?
Open dance for everybody. Had a wonderful time.
Going to jump to a little bit of a different topic. I'd like to cover something on the holidays and traditions. So I think we'll just start with Christmas and work from there. What was a typical Christmas like?
Before or after?
Let's start with before.
Okay, before I was married. Okay, we had a big supper. That was an evening meal. And then the Pilsenigge, which would be the
Santa?
what do you call not the Christ child, not Santa Claus. Oh my gosh, what do you call him? St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas would come. Sure you cut that out. Okay. And St. Nicholas would come. He'd have a long chain with him. Oh my gosh, us kids would be scared to pieces.
Why?
Well, we didn't know. Were you a good girl? Were you a good girl? Mm-hmm. Can you say a prayer? And we'd quickly say our prayers, you know. Well, you guys, you must have been pretty good, he'd say. And then probably we'd get one gift. If it was a new dress or a new pair of shoes or a new hat or a small gift. And of course a big bag of goodies. That was a $5 bag by now, I suppose. And then he would leave again. And in the meantime, we would say, well, where was Pa? We always called our dad Pa. Well, he would finish the milking out there. And he was the one that had the fur. He had a fur coat on, too. A big man's fur coat with a chain and a hat. So we didn't know who it was. All right. Then after supper, we'd light the candles on the tree for just a few moments. We'd probably sing a few Christmas carols. And then by then, we had to get ready to go to town. We'd stop at Grandma and Grandpa's first, you know, before Mass. And then we went to Mass, and then after Mass, we went back to Grandma and Grandpa's again. It was a wonderful time to be with all the relatives and Grandma and Grandpa and moms and dads.
Now, did your family celebrate Easter?
Easter, I'll tell you another thing. Easter, we didn't have baskets. We made holes in the ground like a nest. We had 4 of them in a row, my sisters and I, and we picked green grass, if there was at that time, or hay, and filled it with hay, and hoping that the Easter Bunny would bring us the goodies and the eggs in there. Well, mine was all okay, but my sister again, Sister Dina, was the naughty one again. This time she got a piece of coal in hers. She was so angry. She took that coal, she heaved it over the fence. Where is mine? Well, of course, then Mom and Dad were there. They gave her hers afterwards, but just for penance, she got a piece of coal. But it was fun. Oh, we had a good time. We had a big dinner, Easter dinner.
What would your mom serve on Easter?
Ham, usually. Usually ham.
And how would she make that?
I think she had an orange sauce over it. Orange or no, maybe it was pineapple. I think it was pineapple sauce over it. With all the trimmings and, oh my, a Easter Bunny cake and whatnot. So.
Now, how did your family celebrate the 4th of July?
You know, that wasn't too great, because if there was hay to be put up, we'd have to do that first, and then probably we could go to town and we'd probably get a quarter, and I'm telling you, a quarter would buy a nickel bar, candy bar, Hershey's bar, a bottle of pop. Then we go to the store, and you know, in the store they had big containers of different types of different kinds of candy, about 6, 7 different kinds, and they had a scoop in there, and you'd get a big brown bag, and you could fill that bag for 5 cents. You could mix the candy, whatever, and well, it was this big, I know, and we'd fill it to the top, you know. So we had another nickel's worth of candy.
What was your favorite?
Oh, ice cream cone. Usually at the drugstore, we could buy it for 5 cents a cone, but we'd walk down to the creamery. There it was only 4 cents. So we had 1 penny left. We could buy a big, I bet you it was this big, a BB bat sucker. BB bat sucker for a penny. Well, we could eat on it was kind of taffy, like taffy. But we'd save that penny for that sucker.
Now, did the town ever have fireworks?
Very little in early days. But some of the richer people had some. Well, then we could watch that too, you know. But so not like now. These days they spend thousands of dollars for fireworks, and it's beautiful.
What about for Thanksgiving? Did your family celebrate Thanksgiving?
Sometimes. But sometimes we did not have a turkey. It was a big chicken, you know, a big stuffed hen.
Did your whole family get together for that?
I was just thinking, most of the time they were all there, yeah.
What about birthdays? How did your family celebrate birthdays?
Birthdays, we just got a birthday cake.
What kind of cake was that usually?
Oh, whatever we wanted. I wanted angel food and strawberry topping.
Did you also have Names Day celebrations?
Names Day for my mother and dad, yes. They were parties that people came from all over. Whenever there was St. Elizabeth, that was the one that we celebrated at our house. It was in November 19th, I think. Well, that house was loaded. She'd be preparing lunch for days ahead, you know. And they played cards and they visited. At our house, they did not dance because Mom's floors were shiny. They did not dance. They just played cards. But at some of the homes, they even took the carpets out in some of the homes, and they danced on the wooden floor, you know. Not carpets, but linoleum is what they had then. Yeah.
What about for your father's name day?
No, we didn't. St. George, I don't know when his was. We didn't celebrate. It must have been at a busy season.
Did your family, did they participate in sausage parties or communal butchering or quilting parties or anything?
Usually they butchered with 2 families. Usually 2 aunts or 2 uncles, you know, would get together. And, you know, they'd butcher 3 hogs or 4 hogs at a time. And boy, was that work. Then they'd have to go in and cut all the meat. They did everything by themselves, you know. Cut all the meat. And the ladies would have to do the lard then. They'd have to put it in a big kettle and had it on the stove for, I don't know, for hours it seemed to me.
What did that smell like?
Oh, lard smell. That was all over the place. And, you know, from butchering, there was the greasy kitchens. It took you 2 days to clean up again. That was a job. I never did it, but I don't want to do it either.
How long would those butchered hogs last a family?
Well, they were divided then. You know, one would take one, and like I said, they cured the meat. Oh, they cured the meat in brine, which was in a big wooden barrel. And they put the brine in there. I don't know what the brine was like. It was whatever they had in there. And they'd stick all this meat in there. And, you know, after you took it out, you'd boil it up. It was really good. And then they'd fix potatoes and sauerkraut with it. Man, what a meal. And, of course, the hams, they cured them. They put something on them, and then they wrapped them up very good. Did I tell you? Oh. They wrapped them up in paper, and then they
in the grain.
yeah, then they put it in a gunny sack, and they put it in the wheat piles in the granaries, and they kept quite a while.
Did you ever do that with chickens?
No, they couldn't.
No, always did it fresh.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the morning, they had to butcher the chicken.
Can you explain that process?
Oh, dear. First, they ran out. They had to catch the chicken. Then comes the knife. Had to cut the head off. Throw them away, and they hopped around out there, and the blood was squirting all over. You had to get away. Pretty soon, they were gone. Then you got a big pail of hot, boiling water, and you had to stick it in there so the feathers would come off easily. Then you had to kind of grab a hand of feathers and rub them down, always down so many pin feathers did not stay in there. If you did it this way, it worked pretty good. Oh, I had to clean many chickens. And then when they were done, you had to wash and wash and wash. And then you had to open them up, and the heart, that was it, I think. And wash and wash and wash. Then it was time to cut them apart and put them in cold water again and start frying.
That's pretty interesting.
They were delicious, but it was work, especially if you had the threshings crew there or company coming when you had to do 10 of them at a time, you know.
I'm going to move on to childhood memories for a minute. What was your most stressful childhood experience?
I think my most stressful childhood experience was when I almost cut my finger off. Mom and Dad went to town, and we stayed home. And they said, "Do not make candy today with the stove is on, you know." Well, we didn't listen. So we were making taffy. And of course, with taffy, after it was done, you had to twist it. While it was still hot, you had to twist and pull it apart, and then you had to cut it into pieces. Well, my finger got in the way, and I almost cut it to the bone. Well, when folks got home, you know, here they said, "What happened to you?" Well, I almost got a licking yet, besides having the pain. But, you know, they didn't take you into a doctor to have it stitched, because I still got the scar today, and I was little. But it healed up.
Well, in contrast, what was your happiest childhood memory?
My happiest, I think, was when we got that new wagon. Oh, my, because before we just had an old piece of a wagon with pieced together. And, of course, we had fun with that. We could scoot down with put one foot in the wagon and push with the other one. Had wagon races even.
Well, what was the most adventurous thing you did in your childhood?
I don't know. What did I do? Can't think.
Okay. Well, in conclusion, why do you think it's important to tell your life story?
Well, these children nowadays, even my own, they sometimes think, "Mom, was that really so?" You know, when we did not have electricity, we did not have water in the house. Well, we did not have lights. And the snow, no roads, you know. We didn't have mail service. We didn't get out for 3 months at a time. They can't believe it. And things have changed so much now with the computers and everything. In fact, I'm using a computer now, and I didn't even see a computer until after I graduated from high school.